What is going on, UFC card lovers? I am back here with my partner in crime. It's Zach from Box Alarm Trading. We are here for the pre-UFC 303 card collab that we do regularly here before each and every pay-per-view. We have all your favorites. A little bit behind schedule today. I've actually just jumped in the seat straight from work. Zach's enjoying the start of his weekend on his roster, which is all over the place. So I don't envy
Yeah.
him. But we are going to be getting straight into it. But before we jumped into the regular segments, we do have another viewer question from back the UFC 301 pay-per-view card collab that we did. It was on my channel last time. We obviously alternate with the pay-per-views with whose channel that we host the show on. But this question was asked by one of my long time and probably most, I don't want to say most solid follower because I have a few of them, but Matty Mac, he's always writing down in the comments. Really appreciate him and his takes. And he's asked another fantastic question, which we're going to get straight into. And Matty Mac wants to know, who are the past fighters that we think are forgotten and are slept on in the card market? This was a super interesting question. Really got me thinking. Zach, I'm going to hand it over to you first to answer Matty Mac's question.
Yes, sir. Damien, thank you for having me on as always. And Matty Mac, you're a legend. Thanks for always supporting us on both channels. Really good question this week. And everybody put more questions in the chat. It can be UFC card related. It can be just card related. It can be MMA, UFC related, whatever you want. Great question. For me, I had mainly one guy that really came to mind that I think is super important, not only with the UFC, the formation of the UFC, but also should be extremely important in the card collecting space as well. And I feel like he's a little bit slept on. And my answer is going to be Royce Gracie. And, UFC 1. Is that yours too? No?
Keep
I,
going.
we got
Keep
you.
going. Keep
We
going.
got we got UFC 1. We've got UFC 2 champion and UFC 4 champion. So he's a multiple 3-time title holder. Obviously the first ever champion in the UFC. He's got an iconic look with the gi. Not only, when people look back at the sport, are they going to see him in the gi? They're going to see him in there in open weight and open time. So like this is open weight, open time limit, one round, however long it goes. These people were absolutely insane. The gi is a very iconic look as well. And I think that kind of adds to some of the mystique around Royce Gracie. And not only, does he have the look, but he also is, a pioneer for BJJ as well. And this was at the formation when, we had all different types of arts hitting the scene, all different types of arts duking it out. And his art was the best at the time. And so I think that's a really big moment in time for not only the organization, also for MMA and lastly, for BJJ, which I think is also another good card collecting point because there's a ton of BJJ people that do that as a hobby and as a sport. And I think as UFC cards continue to bubble and get more popular, I think some of those BJJ people are going to get into the cards. And who are they going to look at first? The guy who helped invent the art, Royce Gracie. So that's kind of where my mind went with this. Where did you go with it, Damien?
I was completely spot on with you. Hoist was the first
We're
one who
synced up.
Hoist was the first guy that I thought of, and not that like Hoist doesn't have a collector base already, and not that we don't see his cards selling for
Right.
a decent value comparing to some of the older legends. But for all the points that you just laid out, I'm not obviously not going to repeat them, but for all those points, I think he should be at the top of the list. And if not
hmm
already, I think he could be like the most appreciated and most well-deserving UFC athlete that we've had to carry the highest demand and the highest pricing when it comes to his collectibles. Unfortunately, though, one thing I have noticed with Hoyce is he does have a lot of autographs. Like there's a lot of autograph memorabilia he already has. I think maybe moving forward, that could be one of the only things that sort of not prevent, I wouldn't say prevent, because I do think his collector base will only continue grow as the sport grows older and he becomes more appreciated as one of the forefathers of the sport. But he does have a lot of signed memorabilia already, along with cards as well. We've got, the on-card autos and we also have the sticker autos. And so there is a plethora of autograph memorabilia and cards already for Hoyce. But I think that, yeah, he as you said, for all the reasons, he is probably top of my list. The only other guy that I would add in there that I think is truly slept on a lot is Randy Couture.
Mm,
He obviously, I think someone can correct me down in the comments below, or you can correct me too. From what I could find, he actually was the first two division, not at the same
yep.
time, but he was the first
Hmm.
ever two division champion in the UFC.
It's
Obviously,
true.
winning the heavyweight title in his later 40s or later on in his career. He fought the best of the best for his whole career, and he relatively left at the top. He didn't hang around too long. He did have a few losses at the back end of his career, but that was all against top three, top five competition. So nothing to be disrespected there in terms of his legacy. But I think Randy Couture, his accolades, his popularity, his move into Hollywood, some of the films that he's done
Oh yeah,
aren't too bad as
Expendables.
well. I think that there is definitely a world that where Randy Couture, where the years roll on with MMA, and I think people do get more nostalgia for the sport as the sport continues to grow old. For all the reasons that, as you said, with Royce Gracie, I think Randy Couture could be one of the fighters who are put into that conversation. But they were my top two that I could come up with. There obviously is a few other guys. I think Brock Lesnar would be another one you could probably chuck in there. But the only thing with Brock is he's been successful over basically three professional sports that there's really like a mix of crowds, and there's
Hmm.
really those crowds are going to go in the direction, whether it's wrestling, whether it's MMA, or even some of the people who buy into his Prism football products, for example. But Brock Lesnar is definitely another one of the underappreciated athletes that has competed in mixed martial arts, in my own opinion. But yeah, definitely top two was Royce Gracie and Randy Couture. We were like, I really thought that was a fantastic question. Obviously, got the brain ticking
Hmm.
over when it comes to cards and collectibles for UFC. So fantastic question, Matty. And as Zach obviously prompted before, guys, we do want your questions. We're going to start off the show each and every time with a question, if you guys leave them down in the comments below. So if there's something you want us to discuss at the top of an episode, let us know. And obviously, Zach will be hosting the next episode leading up to UFC 304 on his channel, and we can answer it then and there. All right. It is the famous trash, sell, hold.
That is trash. Oh, you gotta sell that. Hold.
Starting off the episode strong, I picked three absolute bangers.
Dude, what are you
I,
doing to
I,
us?
I feel like we've been getting too many softballs thrown in the last couple of
Last
collabs.
week was easy.
So this time I'm stepping it up. I'm making this episode a little bit spicy. And here are these three cards that we've got of trash, sell, and hold. Starting off with the 2009 Red Ink to 25 GSP in a PSA 9. That is currently sitting up on eBay for a buy it now of 5,000 or best offer. And there's going to be a recurring theme here to make this even more interesting, because the second option is the 2009 round two Red Ink to 25 Brock Lesnar and in a PSA 10 autograph. That is sitting up right now as well for a buy it now of 15,000 OBO. And then lastly, the last choice is the 2009 round two Topps Red Ink number to 25 Anderson Silva BGS graded 9 auto 9. That is sitting up on eBay right now for $3,500 OBO. Picking these cards, I wanted to pick, ideally I was going to try and pick the round one autographs, but these were the top three athletes that I wanted to. And I think what we're just talking about before, probably the at least top 10 athletes that UFC have ever had that I think will carry value in long term. Obviously, round one, not all these guys had autographs. Royce had an autograph. Anderson Silva, I don't think had an autograph in round one, while Brock Lesnar also didn't have a autograph in round one. So that's why we went the next best, which is round two. We went the the most prestigious autograph that there is in the red ink, number to 25. So we're coming in hot this episode. Zach, of these three absolute grail cards for almost everyone in the hobby, which one are
Hmm.
you going to trash? Which one are you going to hold? And which one are you going to sell?
Yeah, definitely more tough than last week on this, but that's what it's all about, right? That's why this is fun. Everybody, put your list down in the comments. Man, so we'll start just with overall theme. I really like this design, and it may just because I have the John Jones of this, but like for whatever reason, I really think this is one of like the most iconic designs that we have in the UFC card space. And again, I could just be swayed because I have a big one of these, but like when I see this, I think of like vintage UFC. And I think it is a better looking card just as far as overall looks than the round ones. Bruce Buffer has a nice auto in this set as well. They're really simple with the red and white, but you know, just something about it. It looks clean, it looks good. And man, when I'm looking at this, we have two guys that are very similar on this list, in my opinion. You know, we have GSP and we have Anderson Silva, both absolute GOAT conversation guys. You can make good arguments for either. And then we have, you know, a wrestling legend who transcended the sport, you know, with Brock Lesnar. So this was a very, very difficult decision. I kind of went back and forth on this, but a few things made me kind of go a certain way. I'm a man of principle and I'm voting off of what I think is most desirable and most collectible and what I think I would want in my display case. So we'll start with the 2009 Brock Lesnar. And now this is his first auto, which, you know me, man, first auto and true rookie are a big, big notch in what I think is collectible and what I would want in my collection. And I automatically think that that puts the Brock Lesnar as the most collectible long-term of the three because of that. Like you mentioned earlier, Anderson Silva has the Chris Lieben auto in round one, and GSP has an auto in round one as well. So this is technically not their first auto. You know, you've got the shot of Brock with the microphone. It's kind of an homage to the WWE, you know, and for that reason, I'm holding long term the Brock Lesnar, which I immediately when I saw the list, I didn't think I was going to go that way, but going down the rabbit hole, you know, I think I'm going to do it. And for the remaining two cards, like I said, they're both. I look at both of these guys kind of similarly. Of all the vintage Anderson, I really like his 2006 Pride rookie. I think that's his best card by far, just looks wise and collectability wise, because it was, you know, well before the 2009 round one. So I wouldn't necessarily want the Anderson or this GSP, to be honest. If I could pick all of their cards, I wouldn't go after these two. I'm gonna sell Anderson and I'm gonna trash GSP.
Oh. Yes. I'm out of the bad books finally.
Yeah.
I was only trashing the round two gold.
And it's the only reason I do that is just because personally I liked Anderson Silva's run a little more. He's just so flashy. He was had so many highlights. That's really the only reason. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of these cards.
Man.
Yeah, the Canadian fans are gonna hate me
Is
for
it
that
hot
one.
in here or what? Oh my God. Absolute drama here.
Where's the ice cubes?
Yeah. No, great points.
What do you got, man?
Yeah, all right. We are going a little bit different here, but that's good. That's
Nice.
this is why we do this segment. It's why I have like a bit of fun. And of course, in an ideal world, no one would be trashing any of these cards. But
Yeah,
you know, we're here. And this is what we're doing.
that's the drill.
I agree. I love the design of the round two comparing to the round one. I just think they're a lot cleaner. Obviously, the round one autographs, they contained the image for both fighters within the fight. I like that these are separated to individually for the fighters. Perfect shot of Brock Lesnar, as you said. He's got him on the mic and his post-fight win, and he's just cutting a promo like he did probably when he beat Shane Carwin or even Frank Mir in their second fight. But it's a real iconic photo of Brock. As you said, it is his first auto. Unfortunately, these are not on card autos, but they are still the very much desired, which I can't think of a more desired product than the red ink autos from what I've seen when it comes to UFC card collecting. They do all have the rarity. They're all numbered to 25. They all from the first year Topps debut product. When it comes to trashing one of these cards, I think I'm gonna do what you did. I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna let these people simmer on this a little bit. Let's talk about the sell. I think you made a lot of good points about Brock and his collectability when it comes to being the first auto, being the rookie auto, and just the overall crossover star power that he has had and has continue to have. I think, as I said, I think he's one of, honestly, not that I collect Brock or anything, but I honestly think he is one of the most underrated athletes of all time, just for what he's done over 3 different professional sports at a level for so long. It's just like, yeah.
Is he still wrestling? I don't watch that at all, so I don't know.
I haven't been keeping up to date, but I think, I mean, he's been in and out over the last 12
Yeah.
months. I think there was a bit of problem with the actual promotion itself, but regardless, he's been relevant the last 12 months
Mhm.
from what I can say. But yeah, super impressive. And then we have Anderson Silva, a guy who was super flashy, was the most popular fighter for a long time just because of his undefeated record, the way that he was winning his fights, making everyone look silly. So he has a strong collector base as well. And I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be actually selling the Anderson Silva in the BGS slab. I think that is a card that is strong in that it would get attention when come to selling, and you could sell that card any day of the week, and I feel
Oh
like
yeah.
you would get a good price for it. Man. And then we've come to deciding now because I've got to hold one and I've got to sell one, trash one, and I can't do the fans a disservice here again because I will literally end up with no subscribers. And I do this for the viewers. So I'm gonna trash the Brock. I'm
Oh.
trashing the Brock. I think, even though I just said I think he's one of the most underrated athletes of all time, I think just I think there's slightly better. Like he has an auto from 2010. If I was to hold one of these autographs, even though this is a debut auto, rookie auto from him, I just do like the 2010
Hmm.
autographs a little bit more. And so that means I'm going to be keeping the GSP. It's all good. It's all good.
Yay.
I'm
Big
keeping the
applause.
GSP, and that will be paying for my retirement in 30 years' time when I go to sell that card. Because one thing I have noticed, and we obviously can talk about this in our agree or disagree, because I have another hot topic ready for the
Mhm.
viewers on that one as well. But yeah, there's something that I've noticed recently when it comes to UFC cards, comparing from today's pricing all the way back to 2009, 2010. And I'm going to bring up a point. We're going to talk about it then, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to get into the next segment now. We do now have pay-per-view buys.
For
Pay-per-view
pay-per-view buys.
Now, for the recent UFC 302 event, I picked up a Jake Matthews rated rookie blue, number to 49 auto. And that was just strictly for the PC. That was a bit of a last minute buy. So that one I was not looking to sell or anything. Zach, you had a card up on eBay. How did you go?
I did it.
You
I
did
finally,
it.
I finally broke the curse. I finally sold something on this segment, Damien. It's
Nice.
been weeks and weeks of doing this segment, and nothing has been moved. But we finally got one sold. So yeah, so the Poirier sold, I think maybe 5 days before the fight with Islam, and I had it listed at 125. Somebody offered 100, so I don't know if it was somebody that saw that video or they were just seeing what they could offer. But 100 came in, and I was like, I'm doing it. So I sold
Nice.
it. Um, I think I got that for around 60-ish from a global mystery pack. So I would say, with the eBay fees and whatnot, I'm probably $20 to $25 plus on that card, which I was happy with. And not something that I wanted long term, so I was just trying to move it and to get it at a little bit of a profit. I was very happy with that.
Yeah, it goes to show, obviously, that is one of the lower serial numbered, if not the lowest serial number. It was the Tools of the Trade Gold, number to 10.
Yep.
So obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but that may be the lower serial numbered card that you've had for this segment. So maybe that was
Yep.
what got moving the needle. Do you remember if you had much action, like views or watches or anything leading up before selling it, or was it just someone
Man, so I
straight
had
bin?
this has been up for, I want to say, almost, it had to have been close to 8 months to a year. Like it's been a long time. And there was a lot of watchers, there was a lot of views. I think it had like 60 views, maybe like 6 to 8 watchers, but nobody was sending bids in. Nobody was doing anything like that. There really wasn't much action on that front, but it did have a lot of eyes. So I think him just getting that next title shot really kind of made this guy want to pull the trigger, I guess.
Yeah, nice. Well, congratulations. Hopefully that's a start
Thank
of
you.
something good. Let's get
Yeah,
a few
right.
more bite nails. And if that was one of the viewers, let us know down in the comments below.
Yeah.
Zach
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
wants to shout you out, shout your beer or something.
Mhm.
All right. But leading into 303, we won't get into this because we could waste a whole hour on my feelings and disappointment to the actual event that is UFC 303. I know you have slightly different opinions, more positive, optimistic opinions of the event itself. I am, on the other hand, and absolutely gutted. I've been buying cards of Conor McGregor for this event to happen for the last 18 months. So I had a whole
Ooh,
plethora of cards that I was hoping I could, make some return on for this event. Obviously, that got absolutely crushed with my dreams.
right.
So we're now relying on the Conor McGregor wannabe in Ian Machado Gary, and we have his rookie. It's not his rookie, but it's his debut year. So 2023 Orange Prism in a PSA 9 slab for Ian Gary. Ian Gary did not have a Prism in 2022 products, which was his debut year. He only had select products, which is interesting fact for those of you who do not know. So you will not find a 2022 Prism product for Ian Gary. His first Prism was 2023. This is the orange, number 99 in a PSA 9 slab. I actually bought this one raw and got it graded myself. Was obviously hoping for a 10. Did not get the 10. Got the 9. And as we discussed in our last episode, probably worth less than a raw card. But I've got it up for sale on my eBay right now. Hopefully Ian Gary gets something going here. I was really hoping Ian Gary next fight was going to be against Colby, and I was hoping he was going to beat Colby. He was going to win the fans back and give the show that they all wanted. But that would have pumped him and his value up more, if in my opinion. But nevertheless, we have him coming up against MVP in a super interesting fight. Going to be a close one. I'm actually not expecting this to move the needle for Ian Gary, win or loss. We'll wait and see what happens. Hopefully I'm wrong. That's my pick. Zach, what do you got going for UFC 303?
So I've got a 2022 Ricky Simone gold disco rookie of 10. So another gold in the segment. Another
Man,
gold.
you're
And
dripping
it's a
in gold
rookie.
over there.
Dripping, I see. But I've had this up for newsflash. I've had this up forever and it hasn't sold either. And honestly, I am not expecting this to move. He's opening up the prelims, which if you're going to be on the prelims, I honestly think that might be one of the best spots to be. You know, the first fight, people are excited. It seems like once the prelims get going, you get a little fatigue, and then then the next one starts. So maybe it's a good spot for him. He's fighting against a guy this is only his second fight, but he did have a KO in his first fight, so he seems like he might be a dangerous guy. He has to have like a nasty finish or like some type of crazy submission. I think he has to do something super exciting, and somebody's got to search him right after that and hopefully pick up a super nice, super clean of 10 gold disco rookie. But that's kind of where we're at right now with that one.
Yeah, well, as you said, hopefully with a little bit more lower serial number, a little bit more rarity, even though he is on the prelims, it is his rookie gold. Hopefully we can get that one sold for you as well, and then you can just keep rolling on and just living the luxurious life.
Yeah.
But that was what
buying the yachts.
buying the yachts, pulling up next to McGregor, giving him some tips. Yeah, that was the only thing I wanted to add on this segment. Obviously, we won't go too much into it, but that was one of the things I was really disappointed. Obviously, the McGregor Red Panty Night, which we all should have been having, it brings in a whole nother demographic to the UFC as a sport. It brings a whole other attention to the sport. And therefore, it brings a whole nother attention to the collectibles and memorabilia space as well. So I feel like McGregor fighting on this card would have been a win. Would have been a win for a fighter like Ricky Simon because he brings in those eyes. And International Fight Week, arguably now, obviously after UFC 300, the second biggest event of the year, people sit down, they watch the prelims, they make a whole event of it. So something like that is obviously part of the reason why I'm disappointed. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully, as you said, you get another sale. Ian Gary puts on a super impressive performance.
Yeah, you too.
And then we are here, we're both up and we're making big plays for UFC 304.
Yep, massive. We'll have twin yachts.
Yeah,
just sail in the ocean. Yeah, but no, I'm with you, man. I think I had like a community poll on YouTube, and I think somebody said it perfectly. It was like it's better fights, but it's a lesser event, which I think is that's exactly how I feel about it. Everything you've said about Conor is completely correct. It brings outside eyes, the spectacle. I mean, I looked at like Google Trends whenever the fight was off, and he was like almost top 10 in Google Trends. That's how big of a name he is. So definitely, maybe technically better fights just from an X's and O's standpoint and like a divisional matchup standpoint, but not as big of an event for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and that was just obviously better fights are not better fights. There's nothing like a McGregor event, and like as I said, if people want to label as more of a casual view, that's fine. But like I've just personally been waiting for this event just because of the attention that McGregor brings to the sport, the spectacle of it all, the fight week that it becomes. Like it's just nothing like that. There's nothing compared to that. Regardless of what you think of McGregor and him as a person or whatever, there's nothing better for the
Yeah,
sport
dude,
than
it's
when
facts.
McGregor, shows up and fights in the octagon. So
You can look at all the numbers. It's true.
yeah. So hopefully, I mean, obviously, best case scenario, I'm hoping that they make that fight for the Sphere instead, and he can get O'Malley on his co-main. That'd be sweet, but we'll see what
That'd be
happens.
big.
All right. That's pay-per-view buys done. Let's get into the next segment, which I teased just before, and that is agree or disagree. Agree or disagree?
That is the question.
All right. So for agree or disagree, this collab time round, I am putting out the statement in there that other than Steve Aoki, UFC cards have no big money interest to pump up the sale prices. Most big cards were purchased in the beginning by collectors/investors at relatively cheaper prices, and those cards, like those red ink autographs that I spoke about before, have sat in the same hands of those people the whole time. Zach, do you agree or disagree?
So this is kind of a hard one to answer because I think I mean, it's a fact that most of the big collectors had either purchased these a long time ago or had ripped them themselves. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 guys that just come off the top of my head that I think that's a fact that they have so many of these original cards, that they purchased, in 2010, 2009, like when these products were originally released. But I do think that I disagree with the fact that I think there are some big money players in the space. What is up with it? I
I'm
disagree.
confused. Do you agree or
It was
disagree?
thumbs down. It was thumbs down. Yeah. So I think that there are still some big players in the space, and more people are collecting UFC now than ever before. I mean, you can look at view counts on videos. You can look at the UFC subreddit that has quadrupled, literally quadrupled in the last 3 years. So I disagree that there is no interest in big money cards within the UFC card world. There are multiple 2,000 plus sales within the past 3 months on eBay. And I think just yesterday or the day before, shout out to Roger, the UFC card guy. He sold his 2024 Diego Lopez 101 Topps Chrome Superfractor for $15,000. I think Diego bought that himself, so that's a pretty sick story. But but like I think there are still some big players in the space. Now, obviously, it doesn't have the same amount of money or the same amount of liquidity that other sports do because it's still relatively small. But I think there is some big money interest in the UFC card world.
Yeah, I probably should have, obviously, when trying to construct this statement, I probably should have clarified. I am mostly talking about when we're comparing to other sports. Obviously, UFC are not ever going to be on the level, in my opinion, at least, not with the other three big sports, with basketball, baseball, and NFL. But what my statement was more sort of getting around at is that a lot of these bigger cards, they're not hitting out the market and they're not getting the sort of attention that they would be if they were coming out for sale. As you said, a lot of these big cards have definitely been scooped up in earlier times by these original collectors, and obviously as great as that is for them, and collectors and UFC investors alike can do what they want when it comes to the cards that they own. But I feel like the fact that a lot of these cards are getting stored away for future times, they're not getting in the cycle of the UFC card market. And therefore, I feel like if UFC cards were regularly having more sales, above 10,000, above 20,000, even above 50,000, which I'm sure some of these cards could generate some of those prices. Heck, we saw Hamzat Chimaev's Gold Prism in a PSA 10 sell for $33,000 last year. What would the GSP 1 of 1 from round 9 do, for example? Or some of these red ink autos in a higher grade of GSP, of Brock Lesnar, of Anderson Silva. Yes, they are sitting up on eBay now. Those are not over 10K cards. Well, at least the Brock was asking 15, for example. But I feel like if we were having more of these regular sales, I feel like UFC cards as a whole would get more respect when it comes to other sports, and therefore would generate a little bit more interest. Because, yeah, we do have a few, I agree, we do have a lot more interest in the sport as a whole, in the cards as a whole. And as you said, it definitely has exploded over the last 3 years since Panini got involved. Obviously, the card market itself exploded. Some people got into UFC. Probably, I'm not sure what percentage of people stayed. That would be obviously an interesting thing to check out in relation to volume of sales from 2020, 2021, all the way up to now. But no doubt UFC has exploded in terms of the numbers of people that are interested. But I feel like because we aren't having those sales, you mentioned about the Diego Lopez 1 of 1, that Roger, UFC card guy, would shout out to him having a fantastic sale. And even cool, I
Yeah,
did
that's
not
awesome.
know that potentially Diego Lopez bought that himself. Imagine handing that card to him in person, getting to meet him or something like that,
Yeah.
getting an autograph on something else. Obviously, that would tie into that story perfectly. But other than a sale like that, like, we rarely have. I should have done a little bit more like research into this as to when the last $15,000 sale was for UFC cards, but I feel like they're a little bit too far and few between. As I said, that's not to put anyone at fault. I'm just sort of stating on the situation how I see it. And other than someone like Steve Aoki, I don't know anyone with big whale money who are able to go in bidding wars against each other. A lot of these bigger cards, when they do go up for sale, they are going for less money because there's not the demand there, but there's also not the people with the deep pockets who can push up the card prices like there is in NBA and NFL and baseball, at least in my own opinion, other than someone like Steve Aoki, who is obviously publicly out there showing off his UFC cards, making his interest in UFC cards known. So when you have Steve Aoki bidding up against the average Joe who at his best is probably, going to put maybe $10,000 towards their favorite UFC card, then you're not getting the plus 20s, plus 30, 50,000, $100,000 sales. So just something that I thought was an interesting statement to put out there. Obviously, you guys and girls in the comments below, let us know what your thoughts are. We would be super interested to read them down below. And let us know if you agree, if you disagree, if you have another take. Definitely let us know down in the comments below. All right, Zach, that brings us to the end of our regular segments. Before we do the outro, before we say our goodbyes, I do have an interesting question that I want to put your way. And obviously, one of our favorite fighters to watch, Israel Adesanya, it is announced that he will be back for UFC 305 in Perth, Australia. I know you've been sitting on a pretty big Israel Adesanya card for the last, what is it, 12-ish months. You have
Yeah, it's been a while.
his one and only rookie card, which is a 2018 Topps Museum. And it is a gold number to 75. And it's not just any gold number to series number to 75. It is a PSA 10. Now, these are notoriously known as the Topps Museum products. They are a thicker card stock. They're at least a 130 point, roughly, even pushing up to 180 points sometimes. These are a much thicker card stock. Therefore, they have double the edges, double the corners, double the chance of damages, and double, and even less than double, more like 4 times more likely that you're not going to be getting a PSA 10. But you have one in your collection. I'm not sure if you've looked at the statistic. I actually haven't checked it out. Should have done it when introducing this question to you. I don't know what the pop report is, but Zach,
Pop 2.
the pop 2. There you go. You heard it from the man himself. He's got one. Some other lucky person has one. And I want to know because this is probably one of the biggest fights I think Israel Adesanya is
Mhm.
going to have in his career. He's had a bit of time off. He's no longer the champ. Obviously, he lost to Sean Strickland in what was pretty much a lackluster performance, should I say. And he's now going to be coming up against the current champion, Dracus du Plessis. They've obviously had a bit of back and forth over the 2 years, and I think this is a very winnable fight for Israel Adesanya to come back in. As I said, this is going to be a massive event in Perth, Australia. I think this could be one of the best times, if not the best time, potentially, to be selling an Israel Adesanya card. So I want to put the question to you, Zach, before we close out the show. Have you thought about selling this card? And what are your thoughts about will you sell this card leading into UFC 305?
I'm not selling it. We'll make it we'll make it as quick as that. But I do think this would be a good time to sell Izzy. And the UFC fans are always really slow to appreciate great champions. We've seen it with Kamaru Usman. We saw it with Aljo. We've seen it with Izzy. And I think a lot of people are starting to come around to Izzy's not only his activity within the UFC, which was insane if you look at his run comparatively to other champions, but also how entertaining he is, outside and the charisma and star power he brings to the sport. So I feel like the absence of him kind of has helped his aura, or the fans kind of get behind him a little more. So I do think that this would be a good time to sell some Izzy. I have a few smaller Izzy cards. I have a 2019 Topps Chrome X Fractor PSA 9 that I probably will list for when he fights. But dude, I don't think I'll ever be able to get that card again if I sell it. And like you mentioned, I am a big Izzy fan, and I've loved his run. I've loved some of the finishes he's had, some of the storylines that he's brought to the sport, just his star power. I think he's been great for the sport in general. And I think he's a guy that's going to be remembered, forever within the UFC. I do think he's one of those people that has put his stamp on the sport that will still be liquid and still be collectible in the future. So because of that, I'm not looking to sell the up 10 pop to Izzy rookie. It's just I'll never be able to get it again, and that's kind of what I'm thinking with this. I'm just gonna hold it.
I definitely understand that. And to be honest, that is the answer that I expected. But I did want to put the question out there because I thought it was super relevant and also thought it was a great talking point because, as you said, and as you agreed, I think this is the best time to be selling Izzy cards if you do have cards that you do want to potentially be moving on
Hmm.
for Israel Adesanya. Because even if he does win the belt back, obviously there'll be hype around that. You won't be getting the value if you try and sell his cards the next week or leading into the next event, even in when he is holding that belt, even if there's a rematch against Sean Strickland, you will not be getting the premium that you will be getting if you sell his cards this event. So, as I said, I completely understand you wanting to hold on to that card. I'm sure it sits proudly up on your shelf and it's one of the most sort of best talking pieces about your collection. And I'm sure you just show everyone when your wife has friends over. I'm sure that's the first thing you do is to drag them in the room.
Hey, check
And
check this out. I know you don't watch UFC at all. Look at this. Isn't it awesome? And they're like, yeah, very
yeah,
cool. You
yeah,
collect
yeah,
cards.
yeah.
Interesting.
I would do the exact same thing. But no, as I said, not surprised to hear that answer. It's the answer I expected, but just thought it'd be a cool talking point to finish off
Yeah.
the
So
episode.
you had a bunch of Izzy cards that you sent to get graded. I know you got some good grades on those. Are you gonna look to move
The PSA 10s I
them?
probably will, and I do have a PSA 9. I've got his second year gold in the museum. So the 2019 museum gold I got that in a PSA 9. It's no PSA 10, so it's nothing compared to you probably wouldn't even use it when you went to the toilet, but it's still a PSA 9 in the second year museum gold. And I probably will look to move a card like that. I do have the 3 PSA 10s from the Chronicles from 2021.
Hmm.
I mean, Chronicles isn't super desired. It's not super appreciated. It's one of the obviously cheaper products that Panini have done. Although it's first year Panini Chronicles, and I have them in parallels that are red, number to 149. One of them's the Asia Red, which is limited to 88. They're just beautiful looking cards, and I really don't know if I would get obviously what I would want for them to sell them. So I might put them up. We can obviously talk about that leading into that event, but I'll probably hang on to at least one or two of them.
Nice.
All right, before we wrap it up, anything you want to finish off the show with? Anything you want to tell the people? Anything, any upcoming videos?
I want to give you a shout out on your UFC card show vid. That did really well, and it was a fun watch. What did you get? Like eight? You got close to 1,000 on that one, so that's a good
I
turnout.
actually, I've been slacking here, if it's not obvious. I haven't been tuning in too much with the whole YouTube out, so no idea how
Hmm.
that. Obviously, I knew it started off pretty good. I think I had like 500 views in the first week, so that's a good video for me.
Hmm.
But yeah, as for numbers now, I'm not actually sure, but I'll take your word for it.
Also, your live is coming up.
Yes, so
Talk
that
to us
is.
about that.
So I was meant to be doing a live. I have never not done a video since starting. I started this channel in September 2022, and I've done a video every week since the beginning. Last week, obviously, I ran into a bit of a problem. I have a big video coming up soon. Well, what I call big. I'm been working on it in the behind the scenes. It is the third installment
Nice.
of my Road to a Grail card. So
Mm.
there's a few little intricacies that I've been trying to work out into getting that video done. Ran into a bit of a roadblock getting that video out last week, so that's where I decided, oh well, I'll save that for the week after this one. So that'll be out next week. But I thought I'll shoot up a live. I was eligible on YouTube to do live, so I was like, sweet, I've got the green light from YouTube. Plan to do the live on the Saturday night. Try to give people the heads up. Try to get people a little bit keen for it. I was keen for it. Sat down, thought 2 hours before I was planning out. I was like, oh, I probably should, get this organized and get this going. Jumped on YouTube, clicked the go live button, and it said, yep, you're good to go in 24 hours time to go live. And I was like, what? That is not what I had planned. So obviously a little bit disappointing for myself. And as I said, apologies to anyone who actually had planned to join. I would have been surprised if I got 5 people being the first live, but nonetheless, I was just excited to get on and do my own live. But I will be going
Hmm.
live tomorrow night, people. It will be about 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be going 11 p.m. my time. So that should be 5 p.m. Eastern Time. What's that? 8 p.m. on the West Coast. And in Australia, that is about 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. So trying to cater to everyone.
Yeah.
I do have a few viewers in Australia as well. So hopefully, I understand if you people can't make it, but nonetheless, I'll be there. I'll be flicking through my PC cards, talking a little bit about my PC cards, and answering any questions that you people have in the chat for me. So super excited to try that out for the first time. And yeah,
Yep. Tune in.
all right. All right, guys. Subscribe over to this guy's channel. Not that I need to tell you that because he is already just smashing it in the subs section. He might actually kick me off. He might go join Matt over at the Golden Octagon or even Joe at Joe's Castles or even Cloudsy. He's going to be hitting that 1K club and he's going to be leaving me in the
Yeah.
dust. He won't have
No,
time for
sir.
me. He won't be picking up my Zoom calls when I ring him anymore. So
Declined.
but yeah, that's how it goes. Maybe one day I'll get there. But anyway,
Ah, dude.
sub to his channel. Not that he needs it. And we'll be back on his channel next time if he has me. If he hasn't hit 1K by then, leading into
Yes, sir.
UFC 304. But thanks again, Zach. Always appreciate your time. And we'll see you
Yeah,
again
man.
next time.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Yep, we'll do it again. Bye, everyone.